And if you missed last week, it's okay, because we leave off kind of on the same thought, but sharing a message today called an eye for an eye. We talked about it last week, but if you have a Bible, whether it be physical Bible, iPhone, iPad, why don't you open up, because there's particularly really only one chapter that we're going to share about today, and it's Isaiah 58. So if you have an iPhone, iPad, if not, don't worry, we're going to have it up on the screen, but really we want to share this thought today, and you can turn to Isaiah 58 and kind of just hold it there, and we're going to read this. I believe that if we really understand what's being in Isaiah 58, we really have a great year in store for this. I don't know about you, but let's just see on the show of hands, who wants to have 2017 to be the best year they've ever had? Just raise your hand. For your family, marriage, business, workplace, I would agree. I think we would all sit here and no one would leave this place and say, actually, I'd be good if 2012 was my best year I've ever had in my life. I would be completely content for the rest of my life. 2012, I could look back and say that was my best year of my life. I believe that every one of us wants to progress every single year that we're alive. And so really we got the foundation verse from last week that we talked about is from 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 1. And it's the Apostle Paul speaking, and he says this, he says in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, 1, he says, "Follow my example as I follow the example of Christ." This is the thought we're going after when we talk about an eye for an eye, because many of us would know when I use the regular terminology, an eye for an eye, we would interpret that as retaliation. We would interpret that as someone says eye for an eye. That means if someone cuts you off in the parking lot or on the freeway, you go ahead, you go off to the side, and you cut them off right back because it's an eye for an eye. They deserve what was coming to them. Well, what the Apostle Paul says is Jesus kind of works the same way, but it's on the flip side. And so he says, follow me as I follow Christ. And what he says is, as I follow Christ, your relationship with Jesus, your relationship with God, the favor that's held over your life is going to increase every bit that you choose to follow Jesus. And so it's a blessing that occurs by putting Jesus as the foundation of our life. It's an eye for an eye. As we follow Christ, like Paul says, then what we start to do is we start to see more peace come over our life. And that's what we're going to be talking about today as we look at Isaiah 58. How many of you guys have ever had anything happen in 2016 that was not a good thing to you? You can show a hand. If not, you can show maybe something that faced hardship. You know, all of us could sit here, and if I handed the mic around and say, hey, what's one thing that hurt you, harmed you, disappointed you in 2016, we would probably be here till the end of 2017 for everyone to list everything that was a difficult challenge for them. Well, I've realized a lot of times perception in the face of trial, it means the world. Because a lot of times we feel like we're on a sinking ship. I don't know about you, but there have been times that I've been in relationships with people that the moment that something bad starts to arise between people, have you ever had friends that just jump off the boat, or maybe even family members? It's like you start facing a troubled time, you guys were in it to win it, and then all of a sudden it got a little hot, and then you turn around and everybody's just jumping off board, and you're like, whoa, wait, I thought, what happened to the whole ride or die thing? what happened? And you're just jumping off the boat, and you're letting the boat sink. And there's a lot of times where I see people, I don't know if you've ever felt this way, like you just felt like you wanted to just jump off the boat, get in a little canoe, and ride life on your own without anyone else. I know I felt that way. I see heads nodding everywhere, and really, God has showed me in the past couple weeks that my perception needs to happen when my ship isn't going anywhere. Because most of the time, if all of us would say we in some way are part of a ship that's going somewhere, that if the ship starts to not move, we all start to freak out. Right? I don't know if you've ever felt like your life, that if you had a theoretical ship, the moment your ship stops progressing, you start throwing out life rafts because you start freaking out. So maybe going into a job interview and you haven't heard nothing back, and you say, okay, wait, no, I'm going to have to start looking for new jobs right away. Or you start looking for opportunities to immediately possibly want to jump ship because your boat is going nowhere. Well, this is what I love. I love this illustration more than anything. I like to choose that it's not my ship that's going down, It's that my ship is possibly at port. How many of you guys know there's a difference when a ship's not moving, when it's sinking to when it's at port? And if you don't know what I mean, is usually when a ship is at port, it means it's docked. Nobody's on the ship. Nothing's really happening on the ship. But that doesn't mean that there's nothing in the future for the ship. There's a difference from a ship that's sinking to a ship that's at port, where everyone off board is getting utilities, is getting food. The captain is in his office charting a new course for the future. People are preparing and setting a destination for where they're going to go to set up the ship to be able to travel further. So there are times, tough times, where we need to not look at things as my ship is going down, rather than my ship is at port, and I need to start getting supplies so that I could further in my destination. What I mean by that is, when I'm at port, I need to go spend some more time with God. I need to grow in my relationship with God. I need to start getting ready so that when God starts to bless me, I'm prepared to handle what's going to happen when waves start to crash my ship. Sometimes we need to put a pause and say, you know what, may look like I don't have a lot of friends. I need to work on growing my community so that when I progress in the future and my ship starts rocking, I'm going to have crew on my boat who are going to help me to go past further than what I could go by myself. When you're in a little dinghy and you try to go in the Pacific Ocean to go to Hawaii, you can probably only get so far. But if you get a huge, massive boat, you can go further than you ever thought. The only difference is you need a crew who's going to help you get there. You can't do it alone. And so many times when we face tough times, we got to use this illustration that my ship, my life is at port right now. And I need to start building into myself so that when God tells me to go, or maybe when God starts to push my boat, I'm going to be prepared to handle it so that God can continue to give me more and more as I grow in handling things. There are people many times who their business starts to be blessed, but then it starts to crumble because they didn't be able to practice and build the infrastructure of their business, so they can't handle everything that God is giving them. And so what happens is when we're at port, what we're doing is we're fixing leaks on our boat, we're sweeping and mopping, we're taking care of the walls, we're maybe upgrading some things so that we can establish growth in our future to go further. So that's what we're going to look at in Isaiah 58. It's taking a moment that when we're at port in life, to be able to allow God to invest back into us. And I hope this isn't continuation from last week. So if you're taking notes, you can either grab your phone, take a picture of the screen right now. But here's my 4 C's of healthy habits in 2017. 4 C's to healthy habits in 2017. It should be coming up. There it is. So if you remember last week, I don't know if you haven't memorized by now, but since I preach the message so much, I do. We talked about in 2017, we need to commit our time, our tongue, our talents, and our testimony. Well, today, what we're going to briefly talk about in Isaiah 58 is that 4 healthy habits to have in 2017 is to commune with God, to really elevate him as the number one priority in our lives, to commit your year to God. Set some commitments of what you're going to do, and we're going to break all these things down and be in community in 2017. I'm telling you, we got to grow our crew. If we want a larger ship that's going to take us further, we have to grow our crew. And then lastly, challenge yourself to stretch. Maybe you didn't walk in here today with any goals for 2017. Maybe you've walked in here and said, for the past 30 years, I have never, thank you, Jeremiah. I preached last week and lost my voice, so I'm still working on getting it back. But maybe you've said there, I've usually set goals every single year, and it's rare I finish all of my goals. But for me, I've kind of set something up to say, in 2017, number one, I'm going to set some realistic goals to challenge myself, and I'm going to work hard at tackling them. I don't know if you work a corporate job at all, but I have, and we do this here, is every quarter you get evaluated within your job to see if you've hit some goals, to see if you met what you were challenging yourself to do, to see if you're matching up with what the company holds to be true. I think every quarter we need to visit in our own lives to say, God, am I matching the goals that I've set out for you? Am I meeting up to what I've personally set to strive after you this 2017? So without waiting any much, why don't we go to Isaiah 58? And we're going to be here for a second because I think this is one of those chapters that stands out so much so on its own that if we just read it, it's going to jump out of the pages by itself. There are verses in the Bible and scriptures where sometimes you need a Bible commentary to help give you some background to it. Sometimes you need to go and listen to a sermon so they can break it down a little bit more. But Isaiah 58, this chapter, which talking about fasting, I think that as we just read it, this chapter together, you're going to really see some things jump out of the pages. And if you're on your phone or if you're reading it through your Bible, you can underline, highlight anything that sticks out. If you're on your phone, screen capture something that sticks out. Whatever it is, let's go ahead and start reading today in the book of Isaiah. It says this, "Cry aloud, do not hold back. Lift up your voice like a trumpet. Declare to my people their transgression, to the house of Jacob their sins." He's going to start breaking down. Some people have had a tough year and they really need God. It says, "Yet they seek me daily and delight to my ways, as if they were a nation that did righteousness and did not forsake the judgment of their God. They ask of me righteous judgments. They delight to draw near to God. Why have we fasted and you see it not? Why have we humbled ourselves and you to take no knowledge of it? Behold, in the day of your fast, you will seek your own pleasure and oppress all your workers. Behold, you fast only to quarrel and to fight and to hit with the wicked fist. Fasting like yours this day will not make your voice heard on the high." So they were fasting with the wrong intentions is what they were doing. But now starting from verse 6, it starts to get good. It says this, "Is this not this the fast that I chose, to loose the bonds of wickedness, to undo the straps of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, and to break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry and bring the homeless poor into your house, when you see the naked to cover him and not to hide yourself from your own flesh? Then shall your light break forth like the dawn, and your healing shall spring up speedily. Your righteousness shall go before God. The glory of the Lord shall be your rear guard." What he's saying is when you start to fast and follow God is going to come behind you and start to push you forward. It's like wind in a sail of a boat. It's like when you start to focus on God, God will be a breath of fresh air in your life. I don't know about you, but I could use a breath of fresh air from God. I could use God to put a little wind in my sails going into this year. And he continues to say in verse 9, "Then you shall call the Lord Lord will answer. You shall cry, and he will say, here I am. If you take away the yoke from your midst, the pointing of the finger and speaking wickedness. If you pour yourself out for the hungry and satisfy the desire of the afflicted, then shall your light rise in the darkness, and your gloom be as the noonday. And the Lord will guide you continually and satisfy your desire in scorched places and make your bones strong." How many of you guys want some strong bones? How many of you guys want God to fill up some dry places in our life? Then it continues to say in verse 12, "And your ancient ruins shall be rebuilt. You shall raise up the foundations of many generations. You shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of the streets to dwell in. If you turn back your foot from the Sabbath, from doing your pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, and the holy day of the Lord is honorable. What he says is, if you start getting into church, if you start getting around other believers who are going to build you up, then I'm going to be there to bless your life. I'm going to be there to encourage your life. Then verse 13, he says this, and we'll start to close in verse 14. If you turn your back, verse 14. Then you shall take delight in the Lord, and I will make you ride on the heights of the earth. And I will feed you with the heritage of Jacob your father, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. So here, this may seem like, just because it was a long chapter, that there was a lot of words. But if you begin to reflect on what's being said, is what's happening is Isaiah is saying, why don't you go in, for them, whatever time they were doing this in, but for us, he would say, why don't you go into the new year fasting and separating some things to God, committing some things to God. And then he goes, and I want you to just watch God work in your life. He says, if you've ever been in a dry place, God is going to bring a spring to that place. If you start to commit some things to God, if you start to spend some time focusing on God, then God is going to meet you where you're at. Jesus even says, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, then that is enough to have God work in your life. I don't know if you heard, but it was all over the news a couple days before Christmas. What happened, for the first time in over 30 years, it had snowed in the Sahara Desert. The Sahara Desert is one of the most hottest places in the entire world. It gets over 127 degrees in the summertime. It is hot. But this was just a few days before Christmas. This was the Sahara Desert and how it looked. The first time in 30 years it had even gotten close to the point of snowing in the Sahara Desert. When you look at the Sahara Desert, I don't know if I would say that term. I don't know if any of you would think of snow in the Sahara Desert. Usually, if you would say any type of desert, we usually think of times where there's no water, where it's extremely hot, where people hallucinate, where people get lost. But when you bring something like, do you know it just snowed in the Sahara Desert? That's something that does not make any sense. That's something that's not supposed to happen in that region. That's the same thing that happens when we spend the beginning of our year separating times with God. God will bring snow to places where it's just not supposed to happen. You see, when you separate yourself and spend some time with God, there are things that are going to happen in our life that just don't make sense. That people look at you and say, your business is not supposed to be doing that well. But how is it doing so well? I'm doing the same thing as you. How is God opening up doors for you? That doesn't make any sense. How is God bringing snow in the desert? How did you and your wife have the same arguments as me and my wife, but your marriage is being blessed? How does that make any sense? Me and my wife face the same thing you and your wife face, but it seems like you're getting snow in places that isn't supposed to get snow. I have the same. Our kids are in the same family. Our kids are cousins. How is it that your kids are being blessed? How is it that you have snow? How is it that I go to the same school as you and I have to have loans for my school, but God's opening up doors for your tuition to get paid for? That doesn't make any sense. How is there snow in places there shouldn't be? And the only answer we can give is to say, God brought it to me. I have no other answer. And the great thing about God is that God is like a moving cloud. He can move his cloud over anyone that would decide to follow him. And so we can be a people that encourage other people to do the same, because God can do the same for other people's lives, and he will do the same for other people's lives. So let's talk about the first point. The first thing is that if we want to have a healthy habit for 2017, is we need to spend time communing with God, spending time with God. And for us, it's this 21-day prayer and fast. You see, in verse 11, like we just read, it says this. He's talking about a fast in the whole Isaiah whole 58, the whole chapter. And then in verse 11, speaking concerning people who fast, he says, and the Lord will guide you continually and satisfy your desire in scorched places and make your bones strong. And you shall be like a watered garden, like a spring of water whose waters do not fail. You know, a lot of us live in a place where there are fires that happen all the time. And there are many times if you make your way up to Arrowhead, or if you even start to go up to Las Vegas, or if you start to go south towards San Diego, towards Temecula, for a number of years, you can generally see, oh, praise God, thanks, Jermaine. For a number of years, you can generally tell where a summer fire had happened because everything is completely scorched. It's completely gone. It could be upwards of 5 years. You can drive past the same place, and it's just always scorched. You always know that a fire had happened there because nothing new is growing. Well, this is what he says, that when you commit time with God, if you commune time with God, places that have been scorched in your life will start to bear plants that should not have been there. But God will spend time in those areas of yours that have felt scorched, ex-relationships, ex-workplaces, ex-people that you used to know, ex-jobs, whatever it is. It says that if you start to spend time with God, he will start to bring water into that place, and it'll be like a garden that has water. It's incredible when we spend time with God. Give me a couple minutes, Jermaine. You see the clock right here? We're going to have a quick conversation. Oh, no, you good, man. You good. It's okay. Me and Jermaine, he's like my little brother. We're gonna talk about it tomorrow. But we're going to commune a little bit tomorrow. No, but how many of us, you see, when I grew up, we all have default browsers on our phones, all of us. Usually when you go and you clear out your history, you clear out your cache or whatever it is, or say you open up a new window, it always goes to a default browser. For many of us, it's Google. That's usually the default browser that happens. For others, it may be Yahoo. I don't know why it's Yahoo, and if it is you in here, it's okay, but I don't know who goes on Yahoo much, but it's Yahoo. But when I was younger, it was MySpace was my default browser, and so was Zanga and stuff like that, if that was even pre-MySpace and things like that. But we all have some type of default browser that says when we clear out all the history or we open up a new page, it defaults to our particular browser. For generally most of us, it's Google. Well, the same way going into our 2017, when we spend time with God, specifically for us, next 21 days, committing time to pray to God, to read our words, to fast from things, then what happens is we're opening up a new tab into our year, and we're defaulting back to God. And we're saying whatever the past year was is the past year. I'm going to erase my history. I'm going to erase my browser history, and I'm going to open up a new tab to God where it's going to default with God and spending time with God. So that's what we do when we start to commune with God. We default back to who he is, and we default back to a relationship with him. And so that's what it looks like for us as we commit to the 21-day fast. You know, after service, we're going to have apples and peanut butter, and so I know we're all used to the Cinnabons and the cupcakes and everything else my wife and her team prepares after every service. Well, just for the next couple weeks, you're even going to have to fast when you come to Fresh Start. You're going to have some healthy things. Next week is going to be kale salad we're going to have together. This week is apples and peanut butter. In 3 weeks, what is it, babe? The organic almond cookies again that we had last week. So, a little treat, toward the end of the fast. But what it is it takes a commitment to set things aside. There's something special when you go before God and say, God, number one, for these next 21 days, I'm going to set a little bit of time aside. I'm going to set a little bit of time aside to read your word, to pray. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to say no to some things in my life. For some people, it may be social media. For some people, it may be particular foods, which is what the Daniel fast is. But whatever it is, setting a time aside for God does something special within our lives. So we got to set time to commune with God and hopefully make a habit of it that doesn't just happen for 21 days, but it goes into the rest of the year. And then here's the second thing, is a commitment. And it says this in verse 12. It says again in 58 verse 12, it says, and your ancient ruins shall be rebuilt, and you shall raise up the foundations of many generations. You shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of the streets to dwell in. If you turn back your foot from the Sabbath, from you doing your pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight and the holy day of the Lord honorable, if you honor it, not going your own ways or seeking your own pleasure or taking idly, then you shall take delight in the Lord. What he says is that if you make a commitment to spend time with God, then what's going to happen is that you are going to pave a way for a new people who need a road to walk on. There is a younger generation with us who just look at what's going on in our country. If you go to kids that are in high school, in junior high, and you ask them anything about our nation or anything about economics, they all freak out. You turn on the news, it just freaks you out. You go on any type of news outlet, you're just worrying. For some of us, we've seen good times, and we hold to those. But for a younger generation, they don't always see that. And so when we make a commitment to God, what we start doing is we start showing a younger generation that there's a road that they could lead to where God is going to bless. Pastor Diego shared it today, but there's one of the biggest online job searches, websites in the entire nation just came out with a release of the top 10 job searches and places to get a job in the entire United States. Number 6 was Rancho Cucamonga, California. Number 6 was Rancho Cucamonga. We are in a place where we can pave ways for our kids, for our kids' kids, for our children's children. We are at a place in a location here that is number 6 in the entire nation for people searching for jobs and attaining jobs right now this year. So we are all sitting at a place where we can do great things for the kingdom of God. We can give jobs to people who need them, and we can get jobs to take care of our families. We have to understand that this city is a city that's going to be blessed by God. This is a city where people are going to be able to put food on their table for their families. This Inland Empire is going to be a place where people are going to be able to live out dreams that God has called them to live out. Now, we can either believe it or we can be skeptical, but we can choose to walk on what God has called us to do and believe. I believe I'm at a special place within my church, and there are many churches in the Inland Empire that are so strong, that are so committed to the message of Jesus, and I believe that's why God is putting a touch within our city, because there are people within this city that are committing to following God within what they do. So we got to make commitments so that we don't miss out on what God has for us. Just today, I was at Victoria Gardens. Has anyone been to Victoria Gardens in the past couple weeks? It is reckless out there trying to find a parking spot. I've never seen anything like it in my life. It is literally, it's worse than Disneyland trying to find a parking spot. It's like War of the Worlds. Bree, who sings up here, it was her birthday yesterday, and they were eating at Cheesecake Factory, and it took me 35 minutes to find a parking spot. 35 minutes. I got there at 7. I did not find a parking spot until 7:35. It's crazy. Thanks, Raywin, for shooting out the love to Bree. But it's crazy how crazy it's been. So what happened today is we leave lunch. I ate lunch with my family, and as we're leaving, I'm headed to my car. Well, how many of you guys have ever had an interaction with an impatient driver and you're a pedestrian? And just, it's not fun. Well, this was that case. This was a woman who was driving in the parking lot in circles. I saw her ahead of time. She kept trying to find a parking spot. Well, I come to the corner, and I'm trying to get to my car. And it's like she's so impatient to find a parking spot that she's like putting the, gas towards me as I'm trying to walk the street. So, in the middle of the street, I kind of stop because I'm saved, but I can still go there. So she's like, keeps putting her gas, edging it closer and closer to me as it goes crossing the street. So I look at her, I'm like, can I walk? And then she's like, throws her head back in her hand. It's like, fine, go. So then she passes right by me and my car where I was about to back out. And so what happens is I continue to then see her still trying to find a parking spot. Next thing you know, I get in my car, I'm backing out. There's a car that comes right behind me, and she's right behind that car. And I could visibly see in her face, she smacks the steering wheel and goes, dang it, that was my parking spot. And then I pull out, and the guy in front of her moves right in. You see, a woman who, I don't know how long she was driving for, but if she patiently waited, if she took a second to pause and evaluate what was going on, she might still be driving there right now looking for a parking spot. If she did not just patiently wait and say, maybe this guy's going to a car. And literally my car was right in front of hers. And I would have gladly said, hey, why don't you go ahead and take my spot? But instead she missed the opportunity. Impatience during this year will give us missed opportunities that God has for us. Impatience within our own life, impatience to not spend time with Him. God, I gave you 21 days and nothing happened, so I'm going to move on. You don't know if it was day 32 that something was going to happen, but you moved on from the parking spot. So we'll go ahead and stay patient during this year in your commitment. When you set something out the top of the year to spend time with God, commit to spending that time. And then here's the last one, or the last two that go hand in hand, is being in community and challenging ourselves to grow. This is one and the same. And we're going to close with this thought and hopefully go have some apples and peanut butter with each other. I just tell you, I'm so hungry because I started today, but I'm going to have those apples and peanut butter. But here's the last thing we want to launch, and we're going to be talking about this a lot more, is challenging ourselves, number one, to be in community and challenging ourselves to stretch. But in this case, I'm going to challenge us to stretch in community for the next year. And what we're doing is we're going to be launching this new thing called K-12 or Koinonia 12. And you'll see it. We have some shirts that are for sale, and in the back it says Koinonia 12. We have some bracelets that say Fresh Start on it that are Koinonia 12. But here's what it is. I'm just going to read it for you, and we're going to break it down a little bit. I'm telling you, if you commit to this, you are going to see such tremendous things happen in your life. Because I have for the past month, and I've already seen God do immeasurable things within our community. Here's what it is. What is K-12? K-12 is a commitment to community. Just like Jesus had 12 disciples that He did life with, we strive to do the same. Here's the challenge. Work on growing a community of 12 people to do life with. People you can laugh with, cry with, and even let some steam off with. Start with 1 or 2 people and grow from there. Here are some things you can do with one another. So here's the challenge part of as you grow your community, here's some things. Start a group text so you can constantly be encouraging one another. Once a week, set a time to get prayer requests through the group text and spend the day lifting them up in prayer. So like, for example, my K-12 group, we do every Friday between 8 and 9 a.m. We send all of our prayers to each other, and then we spend the next day, just the whole day, whenever we have time, lifting each other's prayers up. Meet with all 12 every couple of months and have fun. Sit in church together. Get a possible Bible study curriculum and grow together. Me and Aaron Levy, we're working on together in the bookstore. We're going to have a K-12 group section where you can go there if you have some family members, friends, whatever it is, and you guys can buy a Bible study curriculum together and study it with one another. You can meet at Starbucks, a house, whatever it is, but you can kind of be your own Bible study leader, and we're going to be having that section coming real soon. And then lastly, challenge your 12 to grow their own 12. So if you start to grow 12 people, challenge them to grow one another. We have a little bit more than 100 people in here, but if I just use that as a base scenario, if 100 people in this room decided to commit to this challenge, then that means within that 100 people, 1,200 people would be reached just in this room alone. 1,200 people would be reached by 100 people if we decided to go find 12 people. So here's what we're doing within this, because I will tell you, if you read the Bible, and I went to over 5 years of Bible school, I studied the Bible in all its original languages, and the one thing that sticks out above Jesus dying on the cross and raising from the tomb for our sins, not above that, but next to that is living in community is the next thing that you see. Being with people who care for you, that care about you, that want to pray for you. So here's the real deal, is after service we have these bracelets. These bracelets, they're, number one, they look really cool. They're really nice. And number two, they're completely free. All you have to do is say, I want to make a commitment to grow my community to 12. That's all you have to do. You don't have to sign, you don't have to give us your social security number. You don't have to sign up an email or a text. All you have to do is walk up to that, say, hey, I'd like a bracelet. I'm going to commit to growing my community. But here's the thing on why it's going to be really weird if you don't commit to it. Because the idea is, as you wear this bracelet, it should, within our community, begin to have a conversation to see someone on their wrist and say, hey, you're part of a K-12 group. Who's part of your K-12 group? If you're not actively committing to find one, it's going to be really weird every Sunday for people to ask you that question, and eventually you're going to want to take it off. But here's the thing, is when you do wear it, and maybe you say, hey, I come to church by myself, or I just come with one person. I don't know anyone. Well, the goal would hopefully be, if you desire to grow in relationships, then when you wear this bracelet and someone asks you, hey, are you part of a K-12 group? And you answered, no, I'm not. Hopefully they would say, well, then come be part of mine. Come be part of what I have going on. I will tell you, just within the month, I have 12 guys that I'm doing it with. Just within 1 month, it is unbelievable how many prayers we've lifted up, how many times we've helped one another, how many times the guys have just gone and played basketball with one another, how many times people have said, hey, my wife's going to this or getting this, can you guys pray for her, or whatever it is. It has built such a camaraderie of people who are building one another up. I kind of look at it and go, man, what was I doing before this? Like, how was I living in community before this whole thing happened? So, but it's not meant to be any, trickery or anything difficult. It's not an exclusivity club, so people don't have to be Christians. You can invite anyone and anything to this. I'll tell you how far it'll go just to talk to someone and say, hey, can I pray for you for something? It goes so far in people's life.